Hello and welcome to the Armenian News Network Groong Week in Review. This show was recorded on October 17, 2023. I'm Asbed Bedrossian, and here are the major topics that Hovik Manucharyan and I will touch on today. There is a lot of concern that we're on the brink of a new war, this time on Armenian territory. We'll examine the conditions surrounding this. Next, Pashinyan continues to taunt Russia at a time when their help may be needed to manage relations with Azerbaijan. What is the strategy here? Third, the negotiations are in an uncertain stage. Rivalry between the Moscow and Brussels platforms is heating up again, so we'll discuss what the politics are surrounding that. And finally, we'll have a quick update on the Yerevan elections, considering that Dikran Avinyan was selected mayor by the Yerevan City Council with a minority of the votes. To talk about these issues, we have with us Dr. Benyamin Poghosyan, a senior fellow at APRI Armenia, which is a Yerevan-based think tank. He is also the chairman of the Center for Political and Economic Strategic Studies. Hello and welcome, Benyamin. Thanks for joining us today.
Welcome again, Benyamin.
Hello, Asbed. Hello, Hovik. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Definitely, and we are thankful as well for your participation in our podcast. We get a lot of positive feedbacks. So let's begin with some troubling news, mostly from Western sources of an impending new aggression or war being planned by Azerbaijan, a risk that we cannot exclude and must consider. The major pieces confirming this or contributing to this are, for instance, on Monday, October 9, Armenia's ambassador to the EU, Tigan Balayan, warned of an imminent attack by Azerbaijan unless the collective West takes action, and the emphasis being on the West. Then on Friday the 13th, October 13th, Politico ran a story that mentioned that Blinken had warned a group of lawmakers that Azerbaijan may attack Armenia in the coming weeks in order to physically take the so-called Zangezur Corridor. This was first not confirmed or denied, then later it was denied. Then Frank Pallone wrote a tweet about it saying that he has asked the State Department to be vigilant about this. And when the Iranian Foreign Ministry was asked about this, they said, Azerbaijan should answer this question. And just today, on October 17, in a speech at the European Parliament, we'll talk about the speech later, but Pashinyan also referenced this and said that Azerbaijan's non-recognition of the territorial integrity of Armenia, specifically the 29.8 thousand square kilometers, is a pretense for further military aggression. So, Benyamin, what are you sensing? What is your take on the situation? Is a military aggravation possible in the coming weeks or months?
I believe it's possible. And if we look into Azerbaijani rhetoric, including the highest leadership of Azerbaijan, we see that there is a shift of rhetoric from this corridor issue into so-called enclaves issue. And what Azerbaijan is doing and what Azerbaijan is messaging, now they are telling that, okay, Armenia multiple times, starting from October 2022 and ending October 5, 2023, statement in Granada, publicly recognized Azerbaijan's territorial integrity within this 86.6 thousand square kilometer within Almaty Declaration, December 1991, according to which borders of Soviet republics became internationally recognized borders. So what Azerbaijan is now messaging and telling both inside and outside, they are telling that, look, according to Almaty Declaration and according to these numbers of 86.600 square kilometer, these several enclaves, there are different numbers. Armenian leadership speak about 3-4 enclaves. Now Aliyev is speaking about 8 villages or 8 enclaves, and they even use a concrete number like 109 square kilometer. But they are telling that this is a territory which Armenia recognized as part of Azerbaijan, which is currently under Armenia's control, or what Azerbaijanis are telling under Armenia's occupation. So Azerbaijan is telling that, okay, even if Armenia agrees that Azerbaijani territory under Armenian control, then it means that if Armenia is not going to give back these territories through negotiations, and Azerbaijanis are telling, look, after 2020 war, when negotiations started between Armenia and Azerbaijan, already 3 years have passed, nothing happens. So, sorry guys, but we have the right to use force to liberate, and now they are using this terminology, liberate, to liberate our territories from Armenian occupation. And they are telling that, look, Armenia is obliged, according to international law, to end occupation of Azerbaijani territory. And they are telling, after offensive against Nagorno-Karabakh and forcing all Armenians to leave Nagorno-Karabakh, they are now telling that, look, still this 109 square kilometer of Azerbaijani territory is under Armenia's occupation. And according to international law, Armenia should end this occupation by peaceful means. But if Armenia is not going to do that, then we have the right, according to international law, and this can be even described as a self-defense, according to United Nations Charter 51 article, we can use force, and this will not be act of aggression against Armenia. This will be act of self-defense, because every country has a right to self-defense, and every country has a right to, as they are calling, liberate their territories from occupation. I'm afraid that from this point of view, because even as far as I understand, in international community now there is a confusion. Nobody fully understands the story behind these enclaves. So is Armenia really going to recognize, or has Armenia already recognized these enclaves as part of Azerbaijan when Armenia speaks about this 86,600 square kilometer of territory, or no? Nobody understands. It's a confused situation. Nobody fully understands that if we're speaking about Almaty Declaration, December 1991, does it mean that these enclaves are part of Azerbaijan? Of course, also Armenia has an enclave inside Azerbaijan, and now we can say that yes, but also there is this enclave which is occupied by Azerbaijan. But currently we are speaking about what Azerbaijan is doing. So, unfortunately,
but isn't it true that even in Granada, the statement said that the borders should be based on the latest USSR maps, which would mean the enclaves, Pashinyan basically has recognized enclaves as Azerbaijan.
Okay, what I'm telling that because at least there is a confusion and nobody now are sure outside Armenia that these enclaves are not Azerbaijan, it means that if Azerbaijan launches limited military operation not to take part of Syunik or part of Vayozor and reach Nakhichevan, but if Azerbaijan launches limited military operation to take back, as they are calling these 8 villages or these 2 or 3 enclaves, one is Tigranashen, just after Barur Sevak in Ararat region, and several are in Tavush region, after Noemberian on the highway from Noemberian to Armenia-Georgia border to Bagratashen checkpoint. If Azerbaijan launches this limited military operation, let's call this operation, and simultaneously telling that this is not an aggression, this has nothing to do with Armenia's territorial integrity, I'm simply taking back what Armenia has recognized as part of Azerbaijan. And because there is a complete confusion in international community, nobody can 100% argue that no, these enclaves are not part of Azerbaijan, not Armenia has not recognized this. This will create a situation when even Armenia's partners, who presumably they are not interested to see Azerbaijan taking Armenia or Azerbaijan taking more Armenian territory, even they will be in difficult situation, because maximum they will say, okay, yes, but why you are using force? Maybe you can reach some solutions through negotiations. Through negotiations, you can convince or whatever to with Armenia to give back your enclave. But what I am telling is that because of this gray zone situation, because these enclaves are now perceived even as a gray zone, nobody fully understands. Like Armenia recognized them as part of Azerbaijan. Armenia has not recognized. But if Armenia are speaking about this 1975 U.S. Army General Staff maps, does it mean that these enclaves are part of Azerbaijan? Is Armenia ready to do that? If Armenia is ready, then are there any negotiations? Are there any timetable? Is there any timetable agreed that, okay, Armenia agrees that these are part of Azerbaijan, but this cannot be given to Azerbaijan now, but they will be given later? Do we have time? Don't we have timetable? In this situation, I'm afraid that if there will be limited military operation to take back these enclaves or some of these enclaves, this is possible, and this will not trigger this backlash which many in Armenia hope, especially thinking, okay, there's a magnificent West, I don't know, the President Biden, President Macron, Charles Michel, even Chancellor Scholz will somehow appear and tell President Aliyev, look, you are doing bad things. Armenia is a fledgling democracy or thriving democracy, and you are bad authoritarian guy. Why you are attacking and occupying some part territory of Armenia? Because questions will arise, but maybe this is territory of Azerbaijan. Then okay, in that case, why Armenia didn't bring these territories during negotiations? So in any case, to make this very complicated and long story short, I don't exclude that first, there could be limited attacks by Azerbaijan focused on enclaves. And second, if the attack happens, I'm not sure that we will have this large-scale condemnation, as we hear from US, EU, that use of force is unacceptable, that Armenian territorial integrity and sovereignty should be guaranteed. We heard it from State Department. We are hearing this from Charles Michel, from EU Special Representative in South Caucasus. But again, these enclaves are some sort of part of gray zone, and nobody fully even sure that if Azerbaijan, even by military means, takes these enclaves, does it mean like can it be called as a breach of Armenia's territorial integrity or no? So it's a complicated story.
So far, what we have seen is that whenever there has been a gray zone, the West has used that as a pretext for inaction and doing nothing to help Armenia.
And so has Russia, right? So has
Right.
Russia. And
so are we thinking that essentially under the current conditions, we can expect no help from the so-called collective West, however that is defined, or Russia or Iran, if something like this, like a special operation by Azerbaijan commences?
Okay, if we're speaking about, again, a limited military operations or military strikes, not targeting the opening of corridor reaching from Azerbaijan to Nakhichevan, I don't know, via Vyazov.
My question is, under
Syunik,
those conditions, we can expect
yes,
everyone to just wait and spectate.
Okay. Probably we'll hear condemnation, not our statements that yes, this is bad, still this issue should be solved diplomatically. Okay, Iran will do nothing because look, these enclaves are hundreds and hundreds of kilometers away from Armenia-Iran border. We are not speaking about even Syunik or Vyazov. From Tigran to Armenia-Iran border, I guess it's 300 kilometers, if not more. From Tavush region or from Doemberian to Armenia-Iran border is several hundred kilometers. So what Iran can do? Nothing. What Russia can do? Russia can say, yes, but it's still gray zone. The border is not delimited. And look, now Russia is telling, okay, when in October 2022, Armenian government recognized Nagorno-Karabakh as part of Azerbaijan, it effectively green-lighted the destruction of Nagorno-Karabakh Republic, because if Karabakh is part of Azerbaijan, there could not be independent republic as a part of Azerbaijan. So the same way, Russia can say, okay, when Armenia recognized Azerbaijani territorial integrity within Almaty Declaration, it means that Armenia recognized these territories as part of Azerbaijan. So if Armenia believes that these enclaves are part of Azerbaijan, then what Russia can do or what anyone can do. This could be the same logic as Russia applied when Azerbaijan launched first blockade in December 2022 and then offensive on 19 September 2023. Russia might say, okay, but Armenian government itself recognized these territories as part of Azerbaijan.
Yeah.
So what do you want from Russia? Like you want Russia to fight Azerbaijan, not to allow Azerbaijan to take the territories which even Armenia believes are Azerbaijani territories? And from the West,
it's very...
okay, what can West do? Like, okay, they may criticize Azerbaijan for not solving this diplomatically, but then Azerbaijan may say, okay, but we cannot wait another several years, like 3 years negotiations are on the way. This will be the same logic, by the way, which Azerbaijan applied when they launched offensive against Nagorno-Karabakh Republic, because to be very frank, Azerbaijan was very clear that we are not going to tolerate existence of any Nagorno-Karabakh Republic within Azerbaijan. This republic should be dissolved, either by peaceful means through negotiations or by force. And they were very clear that when I mean Azerbaijan, when we are speaking about dissolution of Nagorno-Karabakh Republic by negotiations, it does not mean that negotiation could take another 5-7 years. They were clearly stating that, look, 3 years we are negotiating, or almost 3 years, like starting from let's assume early 2021, when Armenia-Azerbaijan negotiations started first under Russian auspices and then in December 2021, EU jumped in, then US jumped in late 2022. The Azerbaijanis were telling, look, 3 years is more than enough to reach the dissolution of Nagorno-Karabakh Republic by peaceful means. If this is not going to happen, and this has not happened, it means we are going to use force. And the same logic may apply on these enclaves.
Benjamin, so far we've been focusing on the enclaves as a pretext for possible Azerbaijani aggression. But if we read the news reports and the concerns in Armenia and abroad as well, the talk is about also forcefully securing multiple roads through Syunik, or even actually capturing all of Syunik. So how does Azerbaijan go from the enclaves to actually forcefully punching through the so-called Zangezur corridor to Armenia?
Regarding the potential large-scale attack to take part or whole Syunik or Vyodor regions, of course, nobody can exclude this. First of all, this may trigger, again, this may is big if, nobody knows what Iran will do, especially now when Iran is on the verge of some regional war with Israel. But again, given Iranian multiple statements, any forced opening of so-called Zangezur corridor could trigger backlash from Iran. What type of backlash? It's now simply impossible to assess, but the fact is that this will be risky for Azerbaijan. And then we have the Russia's position. Also, let's be clear regarding these routes connecting Azerbaijan with Nakhichevan. So there is a perception here in Armenia that only Russia wants this restoration of communications, or only Russia wants that Azerbaijan will be connected with Turkey via Armenia, while the European Union and the United States do not want this. This is simply not true, because both Russia, the United States, and the European Union, they all supporting the restoration of communications in the region, including establishing connections from Azerbaijan to Nakhichevan and then Turkey, or directly from Azerbaijan via Armenia to Turkey directly, or Azerbaijan, Armenia, Nakhichevan, Turkey directly. So again, Russia, the European Union, and the United States, they all supporting the restoration of communications, including establishing connections between Azerbaijan and Nakhichevan via Armenia, and Azerbaijan and Turkey via Armenia. The main difference is that Russia believes that these routes should be under control of Russian border troops, or at least there should be some Russian involvement. What type of involvement, what does it mean control, all these are very vague and detailed. But Russia believes that Russia should somehow be involved into this, securing these routes or controlling the transport or whatever. And also we have clear written sentence, Article 9, November 10, 2020 statement, where there is a clear reference to Russian border troops. While the European Union and the United States, they do not want Russia somehow be involved in securing these routes or controlling the routes. But again, the United States and the European Union, they are supporting the restoration of communications, including establishing connection between Azerbaijan and Nakhichevan via Armenia, and Azerbaijan and Turkey via Armenia.
What is the difference between what Pashinyan says, that they are ready to allow communication through Armenia under the sovereignty of Armenia, and what all these major powers want? When you say restoration or corridor, what is the difference between these two promises?
Okay, regarding this big discussion about extraterritorial corridor or Armenian sovereignty or not sovereignty, Azerbaijan was speaking about extraterritorial corridor until April 2023, when Azerbaijan established checkpoint on Lachin. Until then, Azerbaijani position was this, because Armenians are able to drive via Lachin, which means via Azerbaijan, to reach Nagorno-Karabakh without seeing any Azerbaijani police, border troops, or customs officers. Then I want that Azerbaijanis will drive via Syunik or Vyodor to reach Nakhichevan, and I want them, Azerbaijanis, not see any Armenian border troops, customs, or police. Of course, this was completely debatable, that you cannot compare Lachin corridor with routes with Syunik, but this was Azerbaijani position. But this position was valid and was pushed forward until April 2023, when Azerbaijan established its checkpoint on Lachin Corridor. And after September 2023 military offensive, which resulted in complete destruction of Nagorno-Karabakh Republic and forced expulsion of all or 99.99% of Armenians from Nagorno-Karabakh, these arguments are absolutely not valid. But what is Azerbaijan is telling that yes, definitely the roots should be under Armenia's sovereignty. But Azerbaijan is telling that I need additional guarantees that when Azerbaijani citizens with Azerbaijani plate numbers, with their sedans, passenger cars, or trucks, or even these trains via railroad, will enter Armenian territory and drive some 35, 40 kilometer or 45 kilometer via Armenian territory, then someone will not harm them for whatever reasons. It could be like for revenge or any kind of reasons. So now Azerbaijan is telling, okay, I fully accept that yes, this route should be under Armenian sovereignty, but I need additional guarantees that my citizens are not going to be harmed. And from Azerbaijani perspective, Armenia itself cannot provide these additional guarantees. So there should be someone else or third force or external force which should provide these guarantees. Of course, as far as I understand the Azerbaijani position, now they want the establishment of routes even under Armenian sovereignty, but with the involvement of some third power. But this is not the final destination. This is the first step. Then, this is my understanding, after when on a daily basis, hundreds of Azerbaijani and Turkish passenger cars and trucks will drive via Armenia, then they will say, okay, look, guys, but sometimes cars are broken and we need car maintenance shops or car maintenance units, but we want people who know Azerbaijani or Turkish language. So why not to establish some car maintenance units or spots involving Azerbaijanis and Turkish citizens? Then after some periods, they will say, look, but we are speaking about trucks and the drivers are driving for several days. Maybe someone wants to have a rest in Armenia. That is why we need motels or hostels for these drivers. But again, it will be nice to have Turkish food, Azerbaijani food, to have Turkish and Azerbaijani language.
So essentially, you are
personnel.
talking about a process that is leading to the establishment of communities or little towns, which are Azeri towns
Yes,
on Armenian
my
territory.
understanding is that Azerbaijani and Turkish vision is this. First, roots, they jure under Armenian sovereignty, but with some additional security guarantees. What does it mean? Again, it's very vague. But this is the first step. Then, step by step, to increase the Turkish and Azerbaijani presence there on different pretexts. And then in a longer term perspective, and longer term for Azerbaijan and Turkey is, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. I just remember President Aliyev was elected.
This will lead to the demographic
2003.
dissolution of Zangezur,
Demographic dissolution,
of Syunik,
it will bring
of Armenia.
Azerbaijanis and Turks there.
Yeah.
And then who knows what will happen after 10 or 15 years. Maybe, and then if we are allowing these Azerbaijani-led or managed hotels or restaurants or cafes, bistros, food stores, fast food chain established, then it could be some tensions between Azerbaijanis, Armenians, and then they may say, okay, look, but this is not possible, it's complicated, someone was harmed, etc., etc. So I believe that strategically, in a long-term vision, definitely, Turkey and Azerbaijan wants to have direct land border,
right,
which means extraterritorial corridor. But this is a long vision. The first step is simply establishing the roots on the Armenian sovereignty. This is first step. Then there will be second step, third step, fourth step. It will take maybe 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. But again, let's not forget that President Aliyev, Ilham Aliyev, was elected president on October 15, 2003. And they waited 17 years, then launched 2024. Then after 3 years, they launched September 2023 military offensive. And because President Aliyev really, he likes symbolism, on the same day on October 15, 2023, like culmination of his 20-year rule, he went to Stepanakert, raised Azerbaijani flag, and then, for example, he forced Nagorno-Karabakh authorities to sign this capitulation act or to start negotiations in Yevlakh on September 21, the day of Armenia's independence. This is another symbolic act because he knows that every time from now, we on September 21 will not only celebrate Armenia's independence, but will also to mourn the destruction of Nagorno-Karabakh. So this is symbolism, but I mean, Aliyev shows that he can think 20 years ahead to start something in 2003 and finish in 2023. So from this perspective, they will start simply restoration of roots under Armenia's sovereignty, but again, involving some additional guarantees for their safety of their citizens, both Azerbaijani and Turkish. But their strategic goal is the land border between Azerbaijan and Turkey. Of course, this does not mean that it's inevitable. It means also what Armenia is going to do. I'm not in a position to say that if tomorrow the routes will be opened under Armenian sovereignty, this automatically means that 20 years from now, there will be forced or de facto control of Azerbaijan and Turkey over part of Zangetor. This is not inevitable,
Right.
but this is their vision. At least I understand their vision this way.
So while all this is happening, this week, Vahagan Khachaturian signed the ratification of the Rome Statute. Basically, I think you mentioned previously that Armenia is doing everything to alienate Russia, and you can't understand it. Along those lines, Armenia snubbed Russia by not attending CSTO meetings this week. Previously, I think a few weeks ago, Pashinyan's wife first went to Ukraine, then visited Bucha. Pashinyan himself visited Ukraine, shook hands with Zelensky or met with Zelensky, and he even met Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, the Western-sponsored leader of the Belarusian opposition, who has no institutional role whatsoever. So it's interesting why that meeting was arranged. But Putin recently has been very circumspect and conciliatory towards Armenia. Both at the Valdai Club and at Bishkek, Putin, at least in words, said that he understands Armenia is coping with a large humanitarian problem. That's why they couldn't attend. He also again repeated that he doesn't believe Pashinyan came to power or was placed into power in Armenia in order to hand away Artsakh. But of course, during those same events, Putin also said that basically Pashinyan's recognition of Artsakh as part of Azerbaijan sealed the fate and determined what was going to happen. And meanwhile, we still see Pashinyan also said that, we're not leaving Russia, no way, we're not leaving the CSTO. But the next day, his newspaper insulted Putin by saying he's a disgruntled bride or something like that. And then again today in the European Parliament, he blamed Russia for leaving Armenia all alone against Azerbaijan. Then he accused Russia of trying to interfere in Armenia's internal affairs in 2021 by trying to replace him and installing a puppet government. I mean, he didn't use the words Russia, but it was very well understood that it was Russia. So what's going on? What is this bipolar love-hate, public at least, I mean, it's not bipolar in terms of mental disorder, but it is like a public display of both love and hate. What is driving this relationship and the dialogue between Russia and Pashinyan, between Putin and Pashinyan? Let's just put it that way.
Okay, as far as it's possible to assess the Russian decision-making process, including at the highest levels, my understanding is that for Russia, they separate statements, words, and actions. So as far as there is no real action against Russia, from a Russian perspective, they are not very much concerned. Maybe they think, okay, these words and symbolic gestures, including like Rome Statute ratification or First Lady visiting to Kiev. Yes, these are actions, but these are symbolic gestures. Maybe they believe, okay, Pashinyan is doing this to somehow get more money from West or support from the West for whatever reasons. But as far as there is no concrete actions against Russia, and concrete actions, I mean, look, let's talk about CSTO. Yes, Armenia effectively has frozen its membership into CSTO. But this is not legal because at CSTO charter, there is no such a thing. You cannot say, okay, I am frozen member of CSTO. You are as a member or you are not member. And as of now, Armenia has not officially even started the process of withdrawing from CSTO. This is the action from Russian perspective. Otherwise, yes, you did not take part in CSTO drills. Okay, not good, but then what? Maybe not the first time. Okay, you recalled your ambassador in September 2023. You didn't nominate your ambassador until at least mid-October 2023. Okay, again, not good, but still, there is a no process launched in Armenia to withdraw from CSTO. There is a no process launched in Armenia. I'm speaking about legal process. For example, to withdraw from Eurasian Economic Union. There is a no process in Armenia launched to cancel or repeal the Armenia-Russia Friendship and Mutual Defense Agreement, which was signed back in August 1997. There is no actions in Armenia to repeal the agreement which was signed in 1995 on Russian military base deployed in Armenia. There is no legal action in Armenia to cancel or repeal the agreement of the deployment of Russian border troops in Armenia, which I believe was signed even back in 1992. So we have a very interesting situation when we have a lot of words, statements, and symbolic gestures. And I believe I even gave some comments to one of the international journals regarding this Rome Statute. The primary concerns for Russia is not that Putin will come to Armenia and who will be arrested. I could assure you that nobody even thinks about that, neither in the west, nor in the east, nor in the south, nor in the north. Russia may be worried that this is another symbolic gesture showing that Armenia is maybe choosing the Western camp in this emerging multipolar or bipolar or complicated world order. Because from Russia's perspective, the International Criminal Court is a geopolitical tool which was established by the West in 1998 when there was a complete US domination and US hegemony. And this is a geopolitical tool under the pretext of international justice to put geopolitical pressure on West adversaries and use this tool to push forward West geopolitical interest. We may agree with this, we may not agree with this, but fact is fact that the United States has not ratified this. But also we see, for example, arrest warrant against Russian President Vladimir Putin. But no one issued arrest warrant for George W. Bush for violating international laws and occupying Iraq in 2003, which resulted in terrible hundreds of thousands of civilians were killed and maybe up to a million civilians. If you calculate also deaths by the establishment and then destruction of Islamic State, which itself was made possible because US invaded Iraq in 2003. But in any case,
Benjamin, I want to mention really quickly that neither the United States nor Russia are signatories to the Rome Statute.
yes,
Okay.
and also not Israel is not a signatory of Rome Statute.
Nor Iran, nor Turkey, nor Azerbaijan.
Yes, but again, coming back to Armenian-Russia relations, as far as I understand, as far as Armenia is making words and taking symbolic steps against Russia, Russia is not worried too much. When there will be real actions, and real actions means that, okay, we start the process of withdrawing from Eurasian Economic Union. But what does it mean? It should be some legal actions. Armenia ratified the Treaty of Eurasian Economic Union. It means that Armenian parliament should start the process of canceling Armenia's participation or repealing this treaty. The same is for CSTO. The same is for this 1997 Armenia-Russia bilateral treaty on friendship and mutual defense. The same is for the agreement on Russian military base, which let's not forget, Dmitry Medvedev in 2010, when he was Russian president, he visited Armenia, August 2010, and signed additional protocol and extended the deployment term of Russian military base until 2044. We see that a lot of civil society organizations, let's call them pro-Western, like 10 days ago or 2 weeks ago, made a public statement calling Armenian government that it's time to withdraw from CSTO, it's time to repeal the military base agreement, it's time to repeal the border troops agreement, it's time to do this, that, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. There was a huge list of Armenian government should do this, because Russia betrayed Armenia, sold Karabakh, because Russia tried to organize coup d'etat in Armenia after September 19, 2023. But still, there is no action. So from my perspective, but maybe I am wrong, Russia looks into actions, not words, not symbolic gestures, not Pashinyan is going to publicly state in European Parliament, but maybe Putin listens more what Pashinyan tells him privately during phone calls, and nobody knows what they are speaking.
In the context of this competition, Benyamin, competition is also heating up between Moscow and Brussels regarding which venue will be the location of the so-called peace treaty that we've been hearing about. Pashinyan doesn't go to Bishkek, but goes to Granada. And now Michel is talking about inviting everyone to Brussels later this month for this peace treaty, and Moscow being open and inviting everyone to come to Moscow to continue the negotiations. So what was the point with Granada to begin with?
Yeah, Asbed. In fact, as we know, in Granada, Pashinyan signed that statement recognizing formally in writing that Artsakh is part of Azerbaijan. But even this unilateral gesture, which was essentially not attended or boycotted by Aliyev, was not enough for Aliyev, who mocked Pashinyan, Charles Michel, Olaf Scholz, Emmanuel Macron, basically saying, why are you guys talking about Azerbaijan without me? Then after Granada, Russia stepped in and offered to mediate, and Armenia refused to attend. As we know, both the foreign minister and Pashinyan refused to attend Bishkek. And Aliyev exploited this masterfully by basically showing that Armenia is unwilling to accept Russian mediation. And also Aliyev brought up the alternative. They said, he said, if you don't want Russian mediation, then we can talk directly face to face in Georgia. Meanwhile, I think Armenian officials are pinning their hopes on the upcoming meeting in Brussels, I think at the end of October. But I don't know if the status of this has been confirmed or if Aliyev will boycott this again. So my question to begin with, how would you evaluate the statement signed in Granada? We talked a little bit about it, but I was surprised to see no mention, like Aliyev was not there, he was not there to talk about it. So why couldn't Armenia get a more condemnation, get some more pro-Armenian statements in there? Why couldn't, for instance, they mentioned that Artsakh was subject to ethnic cleansing? Do you think that Armenia got essentially what it wanted from the Granada document?
Okay, frankly speaking, I don't know what Armenia wanted to get from Granada document, so it's completely challenging to say, did Armenia get what it wanted or no? Because for answering that question, we should know what Armenia wanted. One thing is clear, that this was not the first time when Armenia recognized Nagorno-Karabakh as part of Azerbaijan. The process started in October 2022 in Prague. Then we had a statement in Brussels in May 2023, then July 2023, again with recognition of territorial integrity, with clear mentioning of numbers, 86.6 thousand square kilometers for Azerbaijan, including Nagorno-Karabakh. Then after the May summit in Brussels, we had Prime Minister's press conference, I believe on May 22, 2023, when he said that, yes, I'm recognizing Nagorno-Karabakh as part of Azerbaijan, but I believe that some kind of special rights or rights of Armenia should be secured. Nobody knew at that time how, but it was clear that this is simply impossible to secure rights of Armenians under current Azerbaijani jurisdiction. So, first of all, we can say that the statement of October 5, 2023 was a culmination of the process which started just 1 year earlier, because the Prague statements will find, I believe, on October 6, 2022, when first time Armenia said that is recognizing Karabakh as part of Azerbaijan. So we have the 1 year process, which then resulted in the fact that there is less than 50 Armenians, 50 Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh, and President Aliyev is putting Azerbaijani flags in every Nagorno-Karabakh towns. Regarding the fight of formats, here President Aliyev is playing much smarter, frankly speaking, because he's telling that I'm okay with any formats. He said that, okay, I'm okay with original Brussels format. And he said that, of course, we can meet in Brussels at original format, like Pashinyan, Aliyev, Michel. Let's not forget that whole idea of bringing Germany into this process was initiated first by Azerbaijan in late 2022, early 2023, to balance France, because Aliyev was telling, okay, France is too pro-Armenian, he cannot be mediator, but if Pashinyan insists that Macron should be there, then somehow this should be balanced by Germany. And let's not forget that Aliyev cancelled the meeting in Brussels in December 2022 when Pashinyan said that I want Macron be there, and Aliyev said, no, I want original format, I'm ready to meet with Aliyev and Michel without Macron. Then Pashinyan said no, and then they came up with a solution that, okay, we'll bring even Scholz, who presumably should somehow balance France, while they also restored this original Brussels format meeting in May, July 2023, and then Americans jump in, starting this another track with teams of foreign ministers meeting twice in Washington, working on this peace treaty agreement. But then the Granada meeting was cancelled because Aliyev said that, okay, France is too much pro-Armenian, even Germany cannot balance it. And in that case, if Armenia has its ally, France, who is telling that I'm fully supporting Armenia, then I need also President Erdogan, because Erdogan is telling I'm fully supporting Azerbaijan. If no, no. But again, he says that I'm ready to negotiate in original Brussels format, but also he's hinting that he's ready to negotiate in Moscow, because he said that, okay, I'm surprised that Pashinyan had time to flew, 5 or 6 hours to reach Granada to discuss Azerbaijan and Karabakh without Azerbaijan, but Pashinyan had no time to flew 3 hours to Bishkek to meet with me and with the President Putin.
And every time Aliyev changes the formats, he gets what he wants, and it seems like, and every time Armenia loses more. So, what are the risks?
The problem is that Azerbaijan is telling that, okay, I'm okay with Brussels format, I'm okay with Moscow or Russia's format, I'm okay with Washington format. Now they are even offering this Georgian platform, like face-to-face meetings. Here, frankly speaking, I can't understand why Armenia, because if it's the case, but if we assess public statements of Armenia...
He says he's okay with Brussels, but then he doesn't show up.
No, he doesn't show up because he said that I'm okay with original Brussels format. Let's not forget, again, I said that in December 2022, Aliyev also said that I'm going to negotiate with original Brussels format, because original Brussels format means Michel, Aliyev, Pashinyan. It does not mean Charles Michel, President Macron, Aliyev, Pashinyan. So Aliyev was always telling that I'm pretty okay with Brussels format. And frankly speaking, it's Armenia. And Prime Minister Pashinyan was complaining about Brussels format. For example, when they met on August 31, 2022, and 12 days later, Azerbaijan launched a large-scale attack against Armenia. There was a lot of complaints from Armenian side that during that meeting, August 31, 2022 meeting, like Charles Michel started to support Azerbaijan, he forced Pashinyan to sign some anti-Armenian documents, etc., etc. Then many times Pashinyan publicly complains that I don't think that Brussels format is working because we reached some agreement during these meetings, but then Aliyev violated all these agreements. So interestingly, Pashinyan complained more of this original Brussels format than President Aliyev. But then now, I'm not sure why, it appears that Armenia is ready to continue negotiations in this original Brussels format, which according to Armenia is not very much useful, while Armenia is not happy to continue negotiations in Moscow format, because at least publicly we have to accept that, and this is action. When I said that Russia is not worried about symbolic gestures or statements, but the refusal to go to Bishkek, both by foreign minister and by Pashinyan, which somehow can be perceived as an attempt not to take part in the Russia-initiated negotiations, this is not a symbolic gesture. This is a step. And frankly speaking, it's very difficult to understand why. Like, again, Armenian Pashinyan himself was complaining much more against Brussels format than President Aliyev. And now it's difficult to understand why Armenia now is ready to continue in Brussels format, but not ready to continue in Moscow format.
Well, one thing is that time has changed, and time has changed everything. There's no more Artsakh right now to defend. In that sense, yes. I think all of the trilateral agreement of 2020 is not valid anymore.
De facto, yes, but legally, no. Because if you are speaking about legal terms, it will become non-valid if at least one of the signatures withdraw his signature from this document. De facto, I fully agree with you. Yes, there is no Lachin corridor, no Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh, but these all are de facto things.
Yeah.
De jure, neither President Putin, nor President Aliyev, nor Prime Minister Pashinyan withdrew their signatures. And even President Putin, I believe it was during Bishkek press conference or during Valdai discussion club, when Putin said that formally, according to November 10, 2020 trilateral statement, all peacekeepers should stay in Nagorno-Karabakh until November 2025. And he said that, yes, despite after this tragic exodus of Armenians from Nagorno-Karabakh, we have completely new situation. But again, Formally, according to November 10, 2020 statement, Russian peacekeepers should stay in Nagorno-Karabakh until November 2025, which means that according to Putin's understanding, still this document is legally valid.
Benjamin, going back to this Brussels versus Moscow and the so-called peace treaty, Pashinyan said that if Aliyev recognizes Armenia's territory of 29.8 thousand square kilometers, then they will have agreed on 70% of the treaty that's under negotiation. Do you know what are the other major points of contention that possibly could be the remaining 30%?
Look, let's be very clear. First, Azerbaijan is not recognizing Armenia's territorial integrity within 29.8 thousand square kilometers of territory because currently up to 200 square kilometers of this territory are under Azerbaijani control. While publicly both President and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Azerbaijan, they publicly stated that there is even a single Azerbaijani soldier on Armenian soil, which means that Azerbaijan rejects to accept that this 200 square kilometer of territory around Jermuk, around Black Lake in Syunik, around some villages of Gegarkunik region, they simply reject that they are controlling or occupying 200 square kilometer of Armenian territory. So actually, currently, Armenia controls not 29.8, but 29.6 thousand square kilometers. But again, Azerbaijan is telling that there is no Azerbaijani soldier on Armenian soil, and Azerbaijani soldiers will not withdraw even 1 meter from positions which they are now controlling, which means that automatically Azerbaijan does not recognizing Armenia's territorial integrity within 29.8. This is number one. So if Pashinyan says that if Azerbaijan recognizes, we will sign peace agreement, it means that we are not going to sign any peace agreement because Azerbaijan does not recognizing, and not by words, but by actions. They are occupying 200 square kilometer of Armenian territory and are telling that they are not occupying Armenian territory, this is Azerbaijani territory. This is very clear non-recognition of Armenia's territorial integrity. So this is number one. Maybe Azerbaijan will recognize Armenia's territorial integrity of 29.6 thousand square kilometer. This is first. Second, Azerbaijan is clearly stating, and their foreign minister and also the special representative of President Aliyev said that peace agreement is possible only if Armenia returns 8 villages, these 109 square kilometer. Okay, even Pashinyan says that yes, I am recognizing these enclaves as part of Azerbaijan, but this is political recognition. There is no legal base. Nobody knows how these villages appeared as a part of Soviet Azerbaijan. But all this creates mess, as I mentioned early in our talk. There is a complete mess outside Armenia. Even nobody now understands what Armenia recognizes. Is Armenia recognizes these enclaves as part of Azerbaijan, not recognizing Armenia politically recognizing, legally not recognizing? It's messy. Azerbaijan's position is very clear. They even invented this number. If Armenia wants peace treaty, Armenia should give back our 109 square kilometer of territory, which they're calling is the other occupied Azerbaijani territories occupied by Armenia. So Azerbaijan is occupying 200 square kilometers of Armenian territory, but they reject this and they demand to take back additional 109 square kilometers of territory of these so-called enclaves or villages. This is number two. And third, they still, as I mentioned, they say, of course, we recognize Syunik as part of Armenia, but we need routes, highways, and railway to connect with Azerbaijan and Turkey. And we need some special additional guarantees that our citizens are not going to be harmed while traveling via Armenia. What guarantees? Who can provide these guarantees? If not Russians, because apparently now Armenia says that Russia should have no role there, then question rises, but who else can provide these additional guarantees? Because Azerbaijani position is very clear. Armenia itself cannot provide these guarantees. So if Armenia believes that it can provide, it means that, again, we will have no peace treaty. So we cannot have peace treaty because A, Azerbaijan does not recognize Armenia's territorial integrity of 29.8. B, Azerbaijan believes that some third country should be involved in ensuring Azerbaijani rights or preventing any harm of Azerbaijani citizens who are going to drive via Armenia to reach Nakhchivan and Turkey. So all these are contentious points. And third, this is issue of enclaves, that Azerbaijan is telling, give me back enclaves, or at least in the peace treaties there will be clearly written that Armenia is giving back enclaves, which itself is a complete headache, because okay, even if Armenia gave these enclaves to Azerbaijan, then Azerbaijan will have corridors from Azerbaijan to these enclaves or not? What type of corridors? So all this bring me to a conclusion that we are not going to have peace agreement signed, or at least this is less likely. Or maybe they are going to sign some framework agreement with very few clauses, maybe like 10, 15, 20, like general statements that we recognize each other's territorial integrity, we agree not to intervene into each other's internal issues, will not allow our territories to be used against anti-Azerbaijani activities. And here, by the way, is a very interesting point, because if by the end of 2023, Karabakh President Samuel Shahramanyan will cancel its decree of September 28 on the dissolution of Nagorno-Karabakh Republic, then it means that both president, parliament, and government legally will continue to war at least until spring 2025. But in this case, if Armenia is going to sign even the framework peace agreement with Azerbaijan, where there will be a clause or article that Armenia will prevent the usage of its territory against Azerbaijan, then Azerbaijan may say, okay, you should either arrest the president of Nagorno-Karabakh Republic, member of parliaments, ministers, etc., or you should at least expel them from Armenia. Because if they remain in Armenia in their official positions, Azerbaijan may interpret this that Armenia allows to use its territory against Azerbaijan. So all these are very, very complicated issues.
Thank you, Benyamin. In the couple of minutes that we have left, I want to touch on a topic that has maybe flown under the radar because of all these geopolitical games that are swirling around Armenia. But about a week ago, Dikran Avinian was elected as mayor of Yerevan. His party garnered 32% of the vote, if I recall, which in itself was a result of only a 28% voter turnout in Yerevan. Yet somehow last week, the Yerevan City Council elected Avinian as mayor. Hovik, can you summarize how this happened? I thought Avinian did not have the votes to get elected. What happened here?
Yeah, essentially what happened in one sentence is one of the so-called opposition parties, Public Voice, which is founded and essentially basically run remotely by Vartan Poghosyan, a popular blogger, also by the name of Dog, who is known for a very particular foul mouth. Basically, they ensured quorum because if you look at the numbers, so they ensured quorum, and by this trick, they were able to then, once quorum was established, the Civil Contract Republic Party, which they had 32 mandates, they were able to vote for Dikran Avinian. If the Public Voice Party or Vartan Poghosyan's party had refused to attend that meeting, then a quorum would not be reached, and the natural outcome after 2 attempts to hold that meeting would be a dissolution of the Council of Elders and new elections. So Vartan Poghosyan claimed he didn't want to see new elections, but to be honest, my personal opinion is he's been trashing everyone, but he's always been trashing the opposition more. So I believe that you can call it a controlled opposition, you can call it a natural dislike of Robert Kocharan and Sargsyan, but essentially he turned out to be a pro-Pashinyan force.
He clearly claimed that apparently for him, Avinian was a better choice than Marutyan. So where does this leave Hovik Manucharyan and Tevanyan as the opposition groups in the city council?
So I don't consider Hovik Manucharyan in the same category as Tevanyan in terms of being opposition. They will be opposition, but I think that the political force that is behind Hovik Manucharyan is more ideologically aligned with civil contract. But I don't think ideology will play into the day-to-day affairs of the city. So there may be issues that bring together the Manucharyan and Andranik Tevanyan and their parties, but it promises to be a contentious grouping of parties. So there's a lot of drama to be expected in Yerevan. But to be honest, like most people like me, we lost Artsakh. Who gives a fuck about Yerevan? But to be honest, that's the way I feel sometimes. Maybe, I don't know, they will be able to come to some useful things together, but it seems like civil contract is going to be leading Yerevan down the road.
I'm going to wrap up our topics here. Thank you for that summary. Now I'd like to ask each of you if there's something on your mind that you would like to share from this past week of events. Benyamin, do you have any thoughts you would like to talk about?
Just a few words. Probably the past week was maybe the most terrible part of independent Armenian history, starting from 1991, when we saw President Aliyev walking in Stepanakert, raising Azerbaijani flag in other Nagorno-Karabakh cities, zero Armenians there. So sometimes it feels that this is terrible, and nothing can be done. Everything is finished. But I also thought about all this, but then the idea came to me that yes, what happened with Nagorno-Karabakh is really, really terrible. This was not inevitable, but I'm not going to jump into this. Who was blaming what, etc. It's too much long conversation for maybe years. But then the idea came to me that definitely this is not as terrible as events which happened in 1915, 1916, 1917, 1918, even in late 1920, early 1921 in Western Armenia, in Eastern Armenia. So if we survived, and not only survived, but even in 1991 established independent state, so it was a result of collapse of Soviet Union, we may call it accidental independence. But this was accidental, not accidental. We survived, which means that even despite the October 15 was again the most terrible day in 32 years of independent Armenia, I believe that at least there are chances that we will continue to survive and hopefully to develop.
It's interesting that you put it in that context, because it's the context that I use exactly myself when I think about how my grandparents survived 1915, 1920, and compared to that, today is certainly, it's not the same. So we have to continue on. We have to carry the flag. Hovik, what are your thoughts for the week?
Well, I don't know how to answer that same question when I talk to my friend, for instance, Armen Asaryan, who lost his son, who refused to bury his son in Yerevan because he wanted easy access to the grave so he could clean it every day and visit it every day in Stepanakert, and he can't. I think that a lot of Artsakhtsis, yes, 1.5 million of them were not murdered, but many lost their homes. Many have been growing up with this idea that we have this strong Armenian nation with this patriotism. The patriotism of Artsakhtsis is really, really, I don't know what the word for it is. It's really moving and touching. And I truly believe that they were the source of cultural and patriotic energy for Armenia, and national energy for Armenia. It's a big loss, of course, and we must continue, but we haven't recognized that what we lost. And I think a lot of Armenians today still are numbed by the trauma that they have had, and they don't realize the full scale of the loss. Yes, it's not the major sort of exodus like of 1.5 million, but in terms of smaller numbers, in terms of the whole region being uprooted, and also hundreds died. There are still a lot of people missing, and I just don't know how to tell someone from Artsakh who lives in tents or maybe even sort of in substandard housing in Yerevan that it was not as bad as a genocide.
Okay. Thank you, Benyamin, for joining us today. Let's talk soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
That's our show this week. We hope you found it useful. Please follow us on social media. We'll talk to you next week.